I've been knitting with Wear Knitters yarns for several years now, not just swatches but finished garments that I've worn, washed and lived in. In this video, I'm comparing 3 of their yarns and sharing how they actually perform over time, not just fresh off the needles. When we talk about yarn reviews, a lot of them focus on first impressions, but yarn really shows its true colors after months or even years of wear. So I'll be focusing on how these yarns perform over time. I'll be comparing them based on 5 criteria: stitch definition, comfort, durability, wearability, and an overall impression based on real use. Let's start with the wool, which is a 100% wool yarn and probably one of the most iconic Wear Knitters yarns. I knitted this cardigan back in 2022 using 5mm needles. One of the biggest advantages of this yarn is how quickly it works up. The large stitches create a bold, modern look, which I still really like. That said, knitting with such a large needles was physically quite demanding. I often had to take breaks simply because the needles didn't sit comfortably in my hands. The finished garment is fairly heavy, which limits how versatile it is in everyday wear. I mostly wear this cardigan at home, it doesn't fit under jackets and it's not something I casually take with me. Because the yarn is very minimally processed, pilling happens quite quickly, especially in high friction areas. Over time, that can make garments look a bit untidy. Comfort-wise, it feels good and becomes softer with wear, but it might still feel scratchy on very sensitive skin. I usually just air it out and only wash it occasionally on a wool cycle. Overall, I think the yarn quality and looks are great, but due to durability and weight, I would mainly recommend it for accessories rather than garments. My overall score is a 2 out of 5 for garments and a 3 out of 5 for accessories. Would I knit with the wool again? Yes, but not for garments. I think this yarn makes much more sense for accessories like hats, cowls or statement pieces where durability and weight are less of an issue. Next is the Petite Wool, which I've used for multiple garments over the years. I've knitted the bombshell bomber for my Wear Knitters kit in cooperation with Knittertude Knits, as well as my own pullover design with a side cable panel. Compared to the wool, this yarn is noticeably thinner and uses smaller needles, which makes a big difference in wearability. You still get a relatively quick knit and a nice bold stitch pattern, but the finished garments are much more practical for everyday use. Stitch definition is good, especially for cables, and the fabric feels more balanced overall. Pilling is still an issue, but slightly less noticeable than with the wool. I also find it easier to remove with a fabric shaver. Both garments have been machine washed multiple times and held their shape reasonably well. While longevity is still somewhat limited, this yarn feels like a better compromise between look and practicality, so my overall rating is a 3.5 out of 5. This is a yarn I would absolutely knit with again. It's a good option if you like the chunky aesthetic but still want garments that fit into everyday life. The third yarn is the baby wool, which is a 100% alpaca and quite different from the other two. I've knitted 1 cardigan and 2 pullovers with this yarn between 2021 and 2022. Because it is thinner and worked on smaller needles, it is much more versatile. It works well for garments, colorwork, lace and textured stitches. The yarn is significantly softer and more comfortable to wear, and it doesn't irritate my skin at all. There's still some pilling over time, but subjectively it feels less severe than with the wool yarns. What I really love about this yarn is the drape. The fabric folds beautifully and adapts well to movement, which makes garments feel comfortable and easy to wear. I generally enjoy working with alpaca because of its softness and temperature regulation properties. Even though it requires regular care, this yarn stands out for comfort and versatility. My overall rating is a 4 out of 5. This is the yarn I reach for most often, even though it needs regular care, the comfort and versatility makes it worth it for me. Looking at all 3 yarns side by side, none of them are objectively bad, they are just designed for very different purposes. For garments, the baby wool is my personal favorite. The petite wool is a close second for everyday wear, while the wool works best as a statement yarn for accessories. We Are Knitters offers a beautiful color palette, but be aware that the result and the actual color differs depending on the yarn base. I'd love to hear your thought. Which of these yarn would you choose for your next project, or which of these yarns have you worked with before and what was your experience?
Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next yarn comparison.